each other. The people of Pharaoh, they started to panic. The people of Musa alayhi salam, they started to panic. So the people with Musa, Bani Israel, are seeing the Pharaoh, who's the superpower, and his army approaching. So they're saying, we will be overtaken. We will definitely be overtaken now. And now this is the confidence that I'm talking about. قَالَ كَلَّا. This is the confidence of Musa alayhi salam. Versus what we talked about with Qarun. He says, by no means will we be overtaken. Kalla means like absolutely not. Now, why is he so confident? Is it because he's like, I'm so strong, you know, I just touched a guy and he died, right? Or I have my staff here, right? Or whatever. None of those things. It was nothing to do with himself. He says, Inna ma'ya Rabbi sayahdeen. Indeed, my Lord is with me and he will guide me through. That is true confidence. It is not based in self. It is based in Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala. Okay? So that is the difference between arrogance based in self and true confidence based in Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala. Okay? Just like the difference between self-hatred rooted in shame versus humility and accountability. Okay? Very important difference. Subhanakallah wa bihamdaka ashhadu an la ilaha illa anta astaghfiruka wa atubu ilaik. I will now allow, inshallah, for discussion, questions, or reflections. And if anyone online wants to ask, just inshallah write your question in the chat. All right. First, anyone want to start us off? Yes. Yeah. So I think what I'm hearing, and just correct me if I'm wrong, so she's asking, where do we draw a line between having husn al-dhan, which we said is a positive opinion, and having boundaries? But it sounds like what you're saying is, where do we draw a line of giving people the benefit of the doubt and having boundaries? Right. So husn al-dhan, so this is very important. I wasn't talking about, and that's a whole other discussion, which is benefit of the doubt for people. That actually wasn't my discussion today. Today I'm talking about husn al-dhan billah, which is very, very central, but it's very, very important to understand that this is a positive opinion of Allah. It's not necessarily having giving everybody the benefit of the doubt all the time, even if they keep on hurting us, they keep on hurting us, they keep on hurting us. Oh, they didn't mean it. Okay, let them, you know, it can actually become like turning the other cheek, right? Turn the other cheek is a concept which is not from our deen, which is like, oh, you hit me on this cheek, let me turn my face to make it easier for you to hit me again on the other cheek. This is not an Islamic concept. That's not what husn al-dhan billah is. So, to clarify, husn al-dhan billah is to always have a positive opinion of God, of Allah. It does not mean that human beings always have positive intentions towards us. Of course not. That doesn't mean that they always have bad intentions either. But humans are not Allah. Does that make sense? So, good that you brought that up, because this blanket husn al-dhan is for Allah. Meaning, Allah always has positive for us. Allah is always working for our own good. That's Allah. Human beings are not always working for our own good. Even if they claim that they are, because guess who else is claiming that they're working for our own good? Israel, right? We're just, working for humanity, man. A lot of people Zion is, this is for humanity, right? Right? We're actually peacemakers, you know what I'm saying? Like, just because somebody says that they are working for our own good doesn't mean that they are. They're not Allah. So it is very important to understand that difference. Husn al-dhann billah, it means that Allah is always working for our good as believers. And whatever Allah does for us is actually for our own good. Even if we can't see it, I want to give this example. Imagine that you are, and I use this example because we can relate to, imagine you go outside, it's raining right now, your mother comes to pick you up. If your mother is not alive, someone that your father, your sister, your brother, someone you really trust, comes to pick you up. And they start driving and taking a different route than usual. And you're like, where are we going? Like, what's the plan here? And the driver, whoever it is that you love and trust, says, don't worry, just wait. How many of us in the car at that point call the police because we're panicking? Is anyone gonna call the police because they don't know the route? Why? But you don't know where you're going. What's the reason? Because you trust the driver. You trust the driver. That is husn al-dhann. That is husn al-dhann. So who is the driver of our life? That's an important question. It's not you. It's not you. If you think it's you, then that's illusion of control. It's not you. It's Allah. So the question we have to ask ourselves, do we trust the driver? And if we trust the driver, then even when we don't know the route, we don't understand why we're taking this road and that road and this bump, this detour, but we never panic because we trust the driver. That's husn al-dhann. On the other hand, if it's an Uber driver that we don't know or trust, and he or she is taking a route that we don't recognize and is off the map, then we panic. Why? Because, he's not Allah, and he doesn't always work in our interest, and we don't trust the driver. Does that make sense? Yeah. Any other questions? Yes. Okay, so her question is, if Allah is the driver and I start to feel hopeless because of something happening in my life, am I committing a sin? That's a really good question. I would actually not word it that way. I would not look at it that way. I think that's also still through a negative lens. I think it's still looking at Allah as the police officer who's just, you went 5 over, you're gonna get a ticket. I think we have to change the way we actually frame it. The question we have to ask is, why am I feeling hopeless? And what is it I need to heal? Rather than, am I committing a sin? Do you see? So the question itself is through a more of Allah being like the officer type of lens. Rather, we need to change that lens from the beginning. So it's a root issue. It's something we have to heal at the root. Why am I feeling hopeless? Why am I falling into despair? And then turning to Allah and asking Allah to take us out of despair. So it's about not seeing Allah as the officer, police that we're scared of, but instead seeing Allah as a friend that we're going to for help. So again, it's about changing the concept of God. And that'll change our questions and that'll change how we respond. Does that make sense? So, again, healing despair comes from Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala. So we always have to ask Allah for help for that. Our hearts are in Allah's hands. So we ask Allah to mend our hearts. Many of us have been through stuff that has led us to despair. It's not about beating ourselves up. It's about trying to heal and asking Allah for help. Allah is Al-Jabbar, for example. Al-Jabbar is the one who can mend and mends things better than before they broke. So turn to Al-Jabbar and ask Allah to heal your heart and to heal your despair and your hopelessness. Because it didn't come out of nowhere. You have to be kind to yourself also. Right? I mean, it's like falling down and then beating yourself up that you fell down. You know, it's not fair, and it's also not helpful, right? You have to be kind to yourself. Like, I've been through stuff. This is why I'm down. And you ask Allah to help you come back up, not beating yourself up. This is a sin. It's like, that's not gonna help. It's like you fall and then you get a baseball bat and hit yourself over the head because you fell. You're not helping yourself get back up. Any other questions? Anyone have any reflections they want to share? Yeah.
So, a question. Leading to what you said before that, that, you know, when you put your trust in the driver, right, that Allah is the driver of my life, and He's going to take me through all the twists and turns of life. So, when Allah puts us through the twist of, you know, toxicity from that we receive in this world, from whether that's from our family, spouses, children, whatever that when they're older. How again differentiate that this is Allah driving us through it and this is just our path, or you know, actually no, we actually need to then take a
Yeah.
a little bit.
Yeah. So I'll repeat her question. Her question is, how can we essentially tell the difference between this is a test from Allah versus this is something that I need to do something about to get me off this toxic path, right? Like, that's your question. It's a great question. In fact, you know this famous serenity prayer? Do you guys know what I'm talking about? Basically, the serenity prayer, I don't know what it came from, but it goes like this. God grant me the serenity to accept the things I cannot change, the strength to change the things I can, and the wisdom to know the difference. Okay, so that's essentially what you're asking. And again, I don't know where this came from, but it's like this quote. So istikhara is asking Allah to drive. It's like, Ya Allah, I give this to you and facilitate what's best and take away whatever's harmful. But the question of where is my part in this? It's a very important question. So what I would say about that is, Sabr. And there's actually one of my halaqas which I posted a few months ago, specifically about Sabr. So I would go back and look at that because Sabr looks different depending on the situation. Okay? So when Allah has given us a command, Sabr looks like for doing that action. When Allah has given us a prohibition, Sabr looks like restraining from that action. And when Allah has given us a qadar that is unchangeable, Sabr looks like patience and acceptance. Now the problem is when we mix these up. For example, somebody dies. Can I change it? Is there anything I can do to change it? Yes or no? Absolutely not. There is nothing I can do to change or bring that person back. In this case, sabr is acceptance and patience. Okay? My house is on fire. My house is on fire. Is there anything I can do about that situation? Guys, don't look short. Yes. Sabr in that situation is not sitting down on the couch and accepting your qadr. Sabr in that situation is not looking at the fire and saying, this is my test. This is my qadar. I will have sabr and sit down. or maybe go back to sleep. Do you understand the difference? All right? In the case where there is something I can do to stop the fire, then I must do it. And this is part of my sabr. It is an active sabr. It is a forward motion. It is persevere to take action, to call the fire department, to get a fire extinguisher. And if nothing is stopping the fire, leaving the burning house. Do you see the difference? And so the question has to be, is there anything I can do? And if there is, then part of my worship is doing it. Part of my worship is tying my camel. Remember the hadith of the Prophet ﷺ. This man, this companion was not tying his camel, and the Prophet ﷺ asked him why. He said, because I have tawakkul, I have trust. He said, "Aqilha wa tawakkal." Tie it and also put your trust in Allah. We cannot say, I have trust in Allah, I have sabr, and I do nothing. That's what he's teaching him and teaching us. When Hajar had tawakkul, she had trust in Allah, she had sabr, but when she was stuck in the middle of the desert with nobody around but her and her baby, did she just sit there passively? This is my test. This is my, this is the qadar of Allah. And this is my sabr, and I'm just going to lay down and sit down. And I'm just going to do nothing because I have so much sabr and I have so much tawakkul. Absolutely not. She got up and she strove, she took action. She took action to try to improve her own situation. The sa'i between Safa and Marwa was her worship. The running between Safa and Marwa, back and forth, was her trying to do whatever she could to stop the fire. And that action was the worship. Inna Allah la yughayyiru ma biqawmin hatta yughayyiru ma bi anfusihim. Indeed, Allah does not change the condition of a people until they change what's inside themselves. We cannot be passive and call it sabr. We can't. You can't stand in the burning fire and say, this is my test, this is the qadr of Allah, the decree of Allah, and I'm just going to go back to sleep. No. The loss of a family member that you love, there's nothing you can do. The burning house, there's something you can do. That's the difference. A lot of people get that confused. So if you are in an abusive relationship or an abusive situation or something that is very harmful, like a house on fire, that's something you can do something about. That's not where we sit down and say, this is my test. Because part of your test is, are you going to tie your camel too? Part of Hajar's test is she going to do her sa'i? And then finally, to understand that the salvation that comes does not come from my action. It comes from Allah. Remember, Allah says, go back to the ayah, Inna Allah la yughayyiru ma biqawmin. Indeed, Allah does not change what is happening with the people, the condition. So Allah is still the one who's causing the change. But Allah says, hatta yughayyiru ma bi anfusihim. There's still something we have to do. When Musa alayhi salam was in front of the Red Sea, we all know that Allah opened the sea. But do we remember that he was also commanded to take an action? Which is to take his staff and strike the sea. See? Hajar took an action, which was Safa and Marwa 7 times, sa'i. They took an action, and after that action they were saved. After he struck the sea, it was opened by Allah. He didn't open up the sea. You could take a stick, to Lake Johnson, it's not going to split in half. Allah did that, but he still had to take an action. Similarly, you can run between all the mountains in the world. Water doesn't come from the sand because you ran. Allah made that happen, but she took that action and she needed to because that was her worship. Does that make sense? Tying the camel is the worship. Yes, I can give you the exact reference, but it's in Surah Al-Ra'd. إِنَّ اللَّهَ لَا يُغَيْرُ مَا بِقَوْمٍ حَتَّى يُغَيْرُ مَا بِأَنفُسِهِمْ. Indeed, Allah does not change the condition of a people until they change what is inside themselves. I can look it up after, but it should be, I believe it's in Surah Al-Ra'd. Any other questions? Yes?
What if the consequence of your action is affecting someone else and never you?
Yeah.
And you want to make the change and help the person that you affected. And so
How do you do that? That's a really good question. So I'll repeat her question. What if you've made a mistake, but the consequence of your mistake is not only hurt you, but it's also hurt others? How do you rectify that? And you want to rectify, you want to make a change, but you also want to make it right? You want to rectify it with the other person or persons. First of all, again, it is the same formula. It's humility, accountability, hope. Humility, accountability, hope. So step one is to humble yourself and to take accountability. Yeah, I made a mistake. It doesn't mean that I am a terrible human being. It doesn't mean, it should not turn into self-hatred, but it should turn into accountability with hope. So where does the hope fit in? First is going to Allah. Just like I said to you, Allah is Al-Jabbar. Really contemplating on that name, the one who can mend anything. So that means he can mend hearts. He made them. He can mend bonds, relationships that are broken. He can mend broken people. He can mend broken relationships. He can mend anything. So going to Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala and asking Al-Jabbar to help mend it, to mend whatever we have broken. We break a lot of things. We ask Allah to mend it. And then after that, doing our part. So first was humility, accountability without self-hatred or shame. And then hope. Hope in who? Hope in what? Hope in Allah. Going to Allah and asking Allah to mend it, and then doing our part. What is our part? Whether that means getting counseling, getting therapy, getting family counseling, getting family therapy, going to that individual and trying to mend it with them, or whatever it is. But that's the procedure. And then having hope. Keep making God. You do our part, we do our part, right? Tie your camel. But you also have hope. You have hope that Allah can mend it. Always go to Allah first. And then do our part as well. And I want to say to people, because I'm always very passionate about talking about parenting and talking about how we, to breaking these cycles. And I always get people, in my classes who, alhamdulillah, they recognize their own patterns. They recognize, many of them have adult children by that point. And they're like, that's what I did with my kids. This is how I parented my kids. What do I do now? And so I do want to leave people with hope that there is always hope. There is always hope. And you would be surprised how much, even an adult child would appreciate accountability. Accountability. And that would go a very long way in mending the relationship, even if it's broken.
When you say, after this discussion, what if you hurt someone by actually putting boundaries, right? And people do get hurt. A lot of people get hurt.
Yes.
Establish boundaries.
Mm-hmm.
I mean,
What then? Because they're hurt. So what should you do about that? Yes, you're right. So her question is, what if other people get hurt because I put up a boundary? Sometimes our boundaries are going to upset other people. And often they can, and often they will, especially if people are used to you not having boundaries. So it's like a brand new way, you know? And a lot of people have established the relationship based on you not having boundaries and kind of just doing whatever they, you know, what makes other people comfortable, even if it makes you very uncomfortable. And so when you start to put up boundaries, which just means, you know what, this is hurtful to me, I can't do it. Or this is harmful to me, I can't. Or, you know, this is, I'm very uncomfortable with this, and you learn to say no. So other people aren't always gonna like that. So what if they get hurt? Yeah, or leaving the burning house, because sometimes people don't want you to do that. they would like you to stay in the burning house. So as I said, okay, number one, it's always try to stop the fire first, right? Try to rectify first. Try to call the fire. You don't just like, oh, the kitchen is on fire, let me just run away. No, you first try to call the fire department to save the house. So you're gonna try to save and rectify first, but this is talking about you've tried everything and the fire continues and it grows, right? That's when you have to leave a burning house, right? But there may be people who get hurt along the way. The question you have to be able to ask is this: have I done something that is displeasing to Allah? That's number one question. Have I done? So now we're talking about my action now, of whether that is boundary or leaving a burning house. Have I done something that is displeasing to Allah? That has to be our first question. What does Allah say about this? That has to be our first question. After we've answered that question, okay, next we ask, you know, this will include that, but have I been unjust? This is important. Have I actually done dhulm? Right? Have I taken away someone's rights over me? This is an important question. If I have taken someone's rights, then I must alter my action to give back those rights. But if the answer is, I have not displeased Allah, and I have not taken someone's rights, and it's also very important to understand what are other people's rights over us. That's also very important. That's its own education. What are other people's rights over us? Because someone might say, well, a parent's rights over their kids is, they say be a doctor, they have to be a doctor. No, that's not their right over their child, is to tell them who they marry. You know, you have to marry your cousin. And if you say no, that's displeasing. That's haram. You've disobeyed me. No. So you also have to understand where people's rights actually are, according to Allah and His Messenger. So this is the question. And if the answer is, I have not displeased Allah and I have not taken their rights, but I have to do this because otherwise I am going to hurt myself, I'm going to get burnt, then at that point, any type of maybe guilt that you feel is misplaced. It's due to years of taking responsibility for everyone else's feelings. You wouldn't know anything about that. Yes, the unlearning. Does that make sense? And I'm especially talking to you oldest daughters in the room. It's about understanding what actually is right and wrong. Just because I've disappointed some, I can tell you that a lot of parents get very disappointed when their non-Muslim children convert to Islam. They've just disappointed someone. Does that mean they've done something wrong? No. Just because someone is disappointed in a choice you've made doesn't mean it was the wrong choice. Just because someone is disappointed in a choice that you are making doesn't mean it's the wrong choice. You have to go back to the two questions. Have I done something displeasing to Allah? What does Allah and His Messenger say about this? And have I been unjust or taken the rights of another person unjustly? That's your reference. And if the answer is no, I have not